Okay, seeing that it's 7 p.m., I'd like to call this meeting to order. We have no amendments to the agenda. Do any members of council wish to make any amendments to the agenda tonight? Seeing none, can I have a mover and seconder for motion to approve the agenda as circulated? Councillor Muir and Councillor Park. All in favor? All hands rising, motion is carried. Okay, we have Silvio. Oh, do any members of council have a declaration of interest to disclose? Seeing none? Okay, we have Silvio from Bruno's Contracting with us tonight. Silvio is here to answer questions of council regarding the plans for the new residential development. I just asked council if you have, when he's done his presentation, when you have questions, just put your hand up, then I'll call on you. So we're not over, stepping on each other. Okay, Silvio.
Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, good evening and thank you for letting me appear before council tonight. Approximately a year ago, I was here with a proposed development for the subject land, which we later entered into an agreement of purchase and sale. And council was kind enough to have confidence in us to proceed with an agreement for us to develop that property. As we started to work with the property, we started to have difficulty with the physical size and just the property itself. As we started checking plans and doing some preliminary field work, not field work, but in-office work, things were not jiving. Principally, where the land abuts the highway coming in is coming in a lot closer to the bridge, which would make it very difficult to get an access road as we had proposed. Also, when we had walked the property with Mayor Nelson and with the prior CAO, Albert, the assumption that we all were making was that the limits of the property were approximately where that road is that you drive down, the center of that property, that the limits were about that. What we were finding out sort of from like before we even came to the site to do any field surveys is that it didn't seem to jive. So we had to define the limits of the property for us to be able to do our environmental assessment, our phase 1 and possibly a phase 2, because it is a brownfield. We're not sure what might be in it. We don't know that there are contaminants. We don't know that there aren't, but we do need to conduct both a phase 1 and a phase 2. So when we could not define the limits, we hired JD Barnes to come and survey the boundary. And at that time, we found that the boundary of the property is probably about anywhere from 30 to 50 feet further away from the tracks than what we had assumed. And when you align the property limits to the highway coming in, you're way too close to the bridge to be able to get an access road, a public access road there. So essentially what we're here to tell you is that we cannot develop that property as we had proposed to you. So before we go any further, we don't want to buy a property and then not be able to do what we've said. I wanted to come and advise council of what we found and possible alternatives. And we're prepared to proceed on whatever basis council would like us to proceed. In order to continue with the development as we had proposed, we would have to purchase some additional lands from CN Rail that currently owns that property that would give us enough land to be able to contour the property because in some locations the boundary of that property gets very close to the actual drop off. You know, we need a little bit more property to be able to contour it properly. And also we would need to acquire more property so we could produce an access road that would meet the highway at a point where the visibility is reasonable and that the MTO would consider, because MTO controls that highway and it's difficult enough to get access onto their property if you meet the geometric requirements for sight lines and distances and things like that. So one option would be we would need permission from council to continue, and we would be prepared to pay for the cost of acquiring the additional property that would enable us to develop it as we had indicated. Secondly, we could purchase the property as it is and try to see what we could do with it, but we will not be able to do what we had proposed. And thirdly, if you wish us to abandon the project, we're prepared to abandon it. I mean, we're here to discuss what options and what you would like us to do. I mean, we're just being upfront and frank because we don't want to buy a property and then not develop it as we had proposed. And I'm here to answer any questions that council may have.
Thank you for that. Councillor Tedesco.
Silvio, the property you're talking about in CN, are you talking about the access, the spur line? Are you talking about the rail bed? Are you talking about the property above the rail bed? Because that's a little bit higher.
It's actually the rail bed itself. And we wouldn't have to acquire all of it. But if we could, we would. Only because it actually goes a long way from the rail bed to the drop off into the property that we're proposing. There's actually legal stakes out there. You can go have a look, and as you go further down, it gets closer and closer to the front of the drop off. And when you align the stakes, you can see where it would meet the highway, which would not be suitable for an access point to the highway.
As far as the access, would it be north of the old CN rail bed towards away from the town?
It would be a little further away from the town from where the existing property ends. If you go to the site, the entrance of the existing driveway or whatever is probably a suitable entrance, simply because you have pretty good visibility from that point, and that is part of the railroad lands. So it would right now, the access point of the lands that are actually owned by the municipality that we were acquiring gets pretty close to the bridge.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor McDonald.
Do you think it's possible to get like a copy of the survey or a map showing what lands the CN that you want to acquire, and just some kind of visual so we can see that?
We could certainly give you I could email you a reference plan that would indicate the lands that are owned by CN.
Yeah, even if it was on that original proposal from like a year ago, but just like outlining.
It would be a different rough plan than, you know, we have the reference plan that shows the CN lands. Now, I think the reference plan was always there. What no one knew was the limits of how close it was. And when we had the boundary surveyed, the stakes are still there, the red stakes. It was just
Not shown accurately.
well, you can't tell from the reference plan physically where it actually meets, you know, and again, when we had driven, to the best of everyone's knowledge, you know, and I mean Albert and the mayor, they assumed that they thought that the town property was somewhere along the middle of that road.
Councillor Park.
So I'm super disappointed to hear about this because I think it's a great project and it has so much potential. So if we were to give you permission to go ahead and to starting the conversation with CN, do you sort of foresee that being a difficult process? Like, I'm unaware of whether or not they've been selling the rail bed along, like, is that going to be a possibility to acquire that property, or do you foresee it being difficult?
Anytime you're dealing with the railroads, it is difficult.
Yeah.
My understanding is that some preliminary negotiations had been commenced with the municipality of Shunya. I think what the railroad was interested in is sort of selling all the lands to one municipality, and then they could sell it to other municipalities or other participants. I think if we approached both Shunya and CN in a combined effort, the municipality in conjunction with us, there is a possibility, but I could not estimate the success of it, nor the time that it would take. But we are prepared to do it at our cost. I mean, I just don't know at this point how successful and how long it would take.
Councillor Mayor.
So if you were to go ahead and do that, but in the meantime, is there any other areas in town that we could look at possibly throwing in 10 or 12 houses? Any other blocks of land that we could look at, work on that process and possibly add a couple more?
We had originally looked at some of the lands that are available in town. And from our perspective, we sort of need a critical mass to be able to get involved to do the project. You know, we don't think that we saw anything else in town that had that sort of critical mass for us to be able to get involved with. This property here had the possibility of up to about 100 units, more or less. You know, and there was a significant amount of site work, which sort of interests us a little more because we do have a gravel pit here in Nipigon, you know, so it's reasonably economical for us to be able to do that. And it was big enough for us to, it's difficult when you're not living here to take on a smaller project. The costs drive everything up.
Go ahead.
So if you, hindsight, if we're going to look into doing the big project, which I'll be honest, I'm in favor for, the lift station is the question. If you're going to be looking at purchasing different sectors of land, the lift station's a necessity no matter what we do, or is there a way that we can, you know, maybe if you have to purchase certain parts of land now, is there a way we can tie into the sewer without that lift station?
The lift station, I assume you're talking about, is the sanitary force main that would be required. I think that would still be required simply because the elevation of the land that we are purchasing is so much lower. There's no way that we could hit the elevation of the sewer. You know, it would still be required.
Councillor Tedesco.
Two things. One, following up with what Sarah said, I've received a number of interested questions about the proposed project. I think there's money out there, people that do want to purchase lots, things of that sort. The other part of the question that I have for you is, north of that CN railbed is a piece of property between the two tracks. I believe that's possibly owned by the town. I'm not sure, perhaps.
There is a property north of the tracks that the township owns.
Would that be of interest?
It would be. If we could acquire the CP lands, it would also make sense to have, you know.
And that would be a relatively simple procedure, wouldn't it?
That would be simple procedure. You know, we would probably still need to have council rezone it and things like that, but it would add to the size of the project and the longevity. You know, if you have a little more capacity, it would be worthwhile, to include that in the plans and to be developed as things are completed.
And a further addition to the concept of the rail bed going as far as Shunya, my understanding is that Shunya has an interest in that to develop linkages with other municipalities for a walking trail. So I would imagine CN would be happy to entertain that from our end all the way to Shunya and further, perhaps.
I would hope so. I would hope so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Great questions. Anybody else want to ask Sylvia anything? No? So just before the meeting, myself, the CAO and Public Works did do a site visit. So you can go see the, the survey lines there and how, what he is, Sylvia's talking about, how it's close to the bridge and how the access point won't work. So we do need to acquire additional property. So working with the CAO, I believe, this council would like to proceed with the project, and we'll go from there.
All right. Well, we'll be in touch in the next few days and discuss possible steps that we can do together and
Sure.
to achieve what we had originally proposed.
For sure. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you. We, just before I leave, just want to indicate that we've also had a large amount of interest. We have a waiting list, sort of a list of people, even living in Thunder Bay, that are calling us, continuously saying, when can we put our name on a lot? So the interest is there. So if we can figure out a way to make it happen, I mean, we'd be happy to work with the municipality, and thank you.
Thanks again.
Thanks, Silvio.
Have a safe drive.
And just to update council briefly, we are having discussions with both Silvio as well as with the municipality of Shunya. So we're involved in those discussions. As Silvio said, sometimes they're not happening overnight, right? Especially with the railway, but we are involved in those discussions. So just so you have that as an update as well.
Okay, next we have Marcel Jean from the Red Rock Fish and Game Club presenting to council on the lake trout stocking.
Mayor, I wonder if I could do a brief introduction. And, Marcel Jean is the president of the Red Rock Fish and Game Club. He's been involved with this proposed restocking project for a number of years. There's been a number of similar interest groups that have expressed an interest to see this happen. And Marcel, perhaps if you could just carry on from there.
Thank you very much for your time. I wish my spokesperson and teacher would have been here today. He's much more rehearsed and better at speaking out than myself, but it's we're trying to get through access to the ministry to explain the positive aspects of having the restocking program initiated in Nipigon Bay, the pluses for the communities, the people. It's just been, it's over, like anybody's lived here for the last 20 years really knows the positive spin-off of it. The ministry decided at one point in time they were going to stop the stocking, and they really never gave reasons why. There's a couple of things floating out there. It was never written as a document to follow up on. They do have a document in place that will allow the restocking to be initiated at any given time again, providing like without another environmental study and all that stuff. We've formed a group of a coalition, I guess, to try and make access to the ministry and information a little, try to get easier, more people making phone calls and that, but somehow they're just they're not willing to contact, sit down, or even give us direction on why you can or can't. The reason I'm here today is that I'm sure everybody knows the economic benefits for the whole North Shore. Like I drive up to Cameron Falls every morning and there's 30 boats waiting to go in the river. And it's a 3-week process. There are those salmon running up the river and every hotel room is booked, every campsite is booked. Well, if we had a fishery like we had back in the late 80s, 90s and early 20s that existed before in Red Rock or this area right now, we'd have that same problem. We'd be booked solid too. You know, it's the whole world's gone through a big change in the last few years. This is just such a win-win. But basically what I'm here to ask for, and I take up a whole bunch more time, we need help from communities, council. Hopefully you have ways to access the ministry. Our stance is I don't want to go and step on toes and I don't want to make people uncomfortable. But with the council maybe asking for support for an economic and socially economic win. Rickford is probably the one sitting in the chair right now. We made countless, and Monty Kerr has made countless of phone calls, and he just will not. Finally called back last week, but he would not give a callback number, and he refused to answer his phone again. And we've gone through all the avenues they've directed us, you know, through the fishing zones, MZ9, which represents, which governs the watershed here in Nipigon Bay. And Monty had talked to the guy this afternoon, and they're going, well, they're basing it on the meeting we had with them last year, and it was never recorded properly. It was the question that we were trying to get support for was never put across properly, and they've just sort of locked them up and said, well, we'll have to wait for next year. Well, we can't wait for next year. We're going to miss out. There's fish. I can give you a little bit more history, but I'm not going to bore you too much right now. They say the cost factor to put the fish in. Well, back in the day, we had the schools, clubs help stock. We all provided free labor to help stock. Maybe that's not allowed nowadays, but I've got some documents right here, and that's why I don't really want to bring them forward. They're putting millions of fish in lakes since the 80s that we have no access to. They haven't even created a fishery, and they're only an hour up the road from here, east and north. I'm not going to get into the details, but they pump millions of fish in there. There's no fishery, and they say, well, no, we can't. So, not taking up any more time. If you understand the question, we need support, and we need hopefully the council to open a few doors and bring it to light what this win is.
Do any members of council have a question? Councilor McDonald.
Have you tried contacting like other municipalities also? If we all band together, maybe?
Yes, we have. Nipigon. I've got a letter of support from Nipigon. We have the Dorian Herkett group, Red Rock First Nations, Lake Ellen First
Yeah,
Nations,
that's great.
Faith Flat, Shunya. We had Mayor Wendy Lyle are trying to open doors for us, and I got October 27th, 2020, we had a conference meeting because of COVID. We couldn't attend, and well, you finally you reached the right person. His name was Kyle Netpet, the Minister of Managers. Well, I'm the one that can get stuff done. I haven't heard a thing since. He just keeps moving us on to another guy, and the other guy that was going to be able to help us, you just finally answered the phone and said, well, I can't help you now, because I got moved to another ministry. So that's what we're up against. But
Okay.
if you look around how Red Rock, the whole North Shore has to rebuild somehow. And it's been proven in the fact that the small cost to put fish in the bay, accessible without a big 4-wheel drive, without a $50,000 boat, and without all this, families just to be lined up on the marina, lined up along the watershed towards Nipigon, which is a walking trail now. It was fishing for everybody, and everybody had a reason to get out and spend some quality time. And I just don't think they have a valid reason not to entertain it, or at least owe us an answer as to why or why not. And then we can attack from there. But right now, we haven't got nothing to even go by. They just will not.
Councillor Tedesco?
My understanding is that the new minister is Greg Rickford
Yep.
out of Kenora, and my understanding is that he is somewhat sympathetic to this whole process. He's just been appointed on the 18th of June and needs to be sort of contacted. So what you're looking for is a letter of support from the Red Rock Council to encourage the restocking to get, well, it would certainly be useful to Dorian too, because they've
We'll
got.
bring it to, we do have, excuse me if I can just interrupt for 1 second. There was, it would have been last November. I'm not sure exactly what terminology guys, but there's 4 communities come together, quad council or something, and it was supposed to have been brought up, and I didn't get a letter of support from them, but I'd contact every group that was going to meet there. And that's the only one I don't have, the quad council, but everybody's in favor. I have letters of support, but I don't have one from the quad council.
Okay, so Quad Council is Dorian, Red Rock, Nipigon, and Lake Helen.
Yeah.
So they, I guess you've got letters of
Yeah, I do
support,
have
but I
the
mean, it
letters.
wouldn't help having
We've
one.
got a
from
lot
them,
of,
so.
Monty's done just an amazing amount of research. It's just, it's very disheartening to not have anybody even
Mhm.
entertain it, and I think we're paying their wages, so that's what makes it even worse, but.
Okay, are there any other questions?
Thank you very much for your time. If you have any questions, report them to myself or Cam, and we all communicate lots together, so.
Thanks, Marcel. Thanks, Cam, because I know you guys have been working hard on it.
Sure.
See what we can do.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to send a letter of support to the Red Rock Fish and Game Club and the association to pursue the M&R in the restocking of lake trout in Nipigon Bay? Councillor McDonald and Tedesco. All in favor? All hands rising, motion is carried. Okay, the minutes of the last regular meeting, August 16th, are items 3.1 of the agenda, and the closed session minutes for that meeting are at item 10.2. Are there any errors or omissions to note in the open session minutes? Seeing none, are there any errors or omissions to note in the closed session minutes? Okay, may I have a mover and seconder for a motion to approve the minutes at items 3.1 and 10.2 of the agenda? McDonald and Muir. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, the minutes of the special meeting, September 1st, are at items 3.2 of the agenda. Are there any errors or omissions to note in the minutes? Seeing none, may I have a mover and seconder for a motion to approve the minutes of the open session minutes of 3.2? Tedesco and McDonald. All in favor? All hands rising. Okay, where am I lost here? Okay, correspondence. Next matter is item 4.1 is a resolution requested to be brought back from the previous council meeting in the Township of Alberton relating to the drought impact in the Rainy River District in Northwestern Ontario area. Do any members of council have questions? Councillor Muir.
Yeah, so going through this, it was pretty concerning. I guess to declare a state of emergency for agriculture, that's the food sources. So there was quite a bit of drought. So I was hoping we could possibly send a letter of support in to back them up as they had requested. This is a serious problem, obviously, that we're going to face more and more now. We saw the fire ban this year. It's just going to get worse. So we have to obviously do some, here's some, we could put a letter of support in.
Councillor Tedesco?
I'd also like to endorse that, that thought. Secondly, the thing is that because of the drought, it's affected even our local people. A bale of hay for people that have horses or cattle is now gone from the original $1.25 a bale to $10 to $12 a bale. The other thing is to Councillor Muir, this speaks to the whole concept of environment, weather change and climate change and all that. So I think we're really obliged to send a letter of support, and we need to do that.
Okay. Do I have a mover and seconder to pass a resolution to support Alberton Council's resolution seeking action to address drought impact in the Rainy Lake District in Southwestern Ontario area? Councillor Muir and McDonald. All in favor? Motion is carried. Next item is 4.2, correspondence from a resident, Ms. Belisle, relating to the sidewalk infrastructure located by her property. Do any members of council have questions to the CAO about that?
I was confused. Could you explain it to us, Mark?
Yeah, I can.
Okay.
I can explain it. So she is looking to have a piece of curb cut, as it doesn't necessarily line up with perfectly with the property in the garage. It is one of those. It is one of those things where if you did, first of all, recently within the last year, the municipality, we have stopped cutting curbs internally with our own staff. So it would be the process, I guess, to go back to the beginning would be for her, and we have inspected the site as well. Public Works Superintendent has spoke with her. So the process now would be to send to apply for a permit to have that cut, right? So it's our curb, right? Obviously, the curbs belong to the township. The other issue here with this particular location is, and as we kind of drove her, it's really not out that much. If it even is, it's hard to see. But if you look through the municipality, it's very common to see that, where you do see. The other tenfold issue here would be there is a sidewalk along there. So in order to even cut the curb by a foot, you would have to remove the sidewalk on the backside as well, right? So, I mean, there's a few different issues there. Again, in her procedure would be to apply to the township for that, and then it would be a decision that we would have to make on the sidewalk and all those issues. For us to go cut that curb, it would be probably a precedent that you'd be looking at cutting a lot of curbs, and apparently it has been an issue in the past where it has been something that was questioned. So that's kind of the issue. It's like if you were coming straight out of your driveway and you had like maybe a little bit, we're talking maybe a foot, 6 inches to move over. So that's kind of the request there. It's to cut a little bit of the curb to make it easier to get in and out. But
Councillor Tedesco.
Apparently there has been a promise, a verbal promise made by the late Bernie Simmons, pardon me. He had promised that he would take care of that back a number of years ago. So we do have an obligation in a sense to do that. And I agree it's difficult because we have passed the motion not to cut curbs for individuals. However, if community citizens were willing to take the jackhammer and do that, would that be something that would be accepted?
for a community. Well, first of all, there's a few other issues to it too. I mean, there is I mean, in this case, we would own the curb at that point, but I mean, as you would want to, if you went deeper onto that and say you wanted to open up your driveway, you would have to determine ownership of that property as well, because you can't just, so you would need that survey to determine your land. I mean, I would say no. I mean, a resident could not go around and destroy township property. That wouldn't be something that I would think council would want to entertain. But that's my opinion and my direction to council. I mean, whereas it's
I think what's best is that the CAO in Public Works works with Ms. Belisle on resolution of, if it's possible to expand that driveway, but I mean, it's a lot of work for 6 inches to a foot. Maybe there's, something that
and that's
we can work towards.
and
But
we are talking, and Blair and I were there again today on a visit, and we didn't speak with her today, but we will. It is one thing that it will set up
Oh,
a
yeah.
precedent that will take off. It really will, because if you do look at a lot of that structure, I mean, nothing sometimes is built perfectly straight. I mean, so we are talking with her. At this point right now, I wouldn't recommend at this point going in and cutting the curb. But I certainly recommend the fact that if the direction is to keep having those conversations and talking with her, but it would be something that I think would snowball quite quickly.
Well, I think that it has in the past, right? And that's why we decided that we were no longer in the business of cutting curbs, right?
Correct.
for sure.
Yeah. So let's not start. Yeah. Unfortunately.
Yeah, I agree as well. We did determine that. We did have issues with the curbs and we did decide. I think that was a good decision that we made.
Yeah, me too.
I think, like I said, the some of the bigger issue is the fact that you in most cases you would have to remove that good chunk of that sidewalk as well.
Oh, yeah.
Right, to get at the back end of that, because you can't just cut it. You have to shape it, and so it is.
Okay, thank you. Okay, reports from committees, items 5.1 of minutes from the Environmental Committee for its meeting July 27th. Do members of council have any questions?
I just want to say you guys are doing really great work. It's awesome.
Hey, thank you very much. There's a dedicated group there. There's some big ideas with regards to recycling and yeah, no, it's really taken off. It's really happy to see this.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to appoint Cindy Poulin and Terry Landry to the Environmental Committee and also to receive the minutes? Councillor Muir and Tedesco. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, item 6.1, a report from on administrative activities. Do members of council have questions for Mr. Figlamini? Seeing none, do I have a mover and seconder for a motion to receive the report? Councillor Park and Muir. All in favor? Motion is carried. Item 6.2 is information and direction. It relates to the rental rates of the Recreation Center. Do members of council have questions of administration? If you recall, we asked him to come back with the.
Yeah.
So direction would be either we stay the course with what our rates that we approved in the spring, summer, or do we want to revisit it? Or do we wait and revisit it next year as we look at these numbers on a yearly basis? Councillor Mayor.
Yeah, I wouldn't mind revisiting at least the room rental rates right now, so we can get programming in there, at least for the programs that we know we can get. But yeah, I was looking at this too, and I mean, at some point, I could see if we had 1,700 people in town, the rates will have to go up eventually. But right now, with our low population, we do need a place for people to go. We should use that as much as we can, the rooms, I believe.
Councillor Tedesco.
Does CAO have any recommendations on this matter?
Well, I will speak to the matter because I think it, just for clarity and the conversations I've had. So she's looking for some kind of an answer quite quickly because she'd like to plan her classes. So, I mean, from where I look at, I mean, when we look at room rentals and we highlight the full gym being $30 per hour, that is her request right now mainly because of COVID and the ability to be able to social distance. So if you look at that, I mean, her request is to have a $10 rate. And if you look at the main room that she uses or the gym lounge, we've got that is 20. So you're looking at obviously a $10 drop there. When you go into the gym and the lounge, which is also a request, because if she does have the lounge, she would like the gym to be non-used for that time. So if you look at it, it very well does turn into, if you use both rooms, it does turn into a $50 an hour rental technically, to have the exclusive use of both rooms. So my discussions with her have been very, very good. She wants to provide recreation in the community. It's one of those things that I've explained to her, I can't bonus her by telling her I can do that as CEO. It's beyond my power. That's the power of council. So really and truly what she would be looking for right now from my last discussion with her this afternoon would be use of the gymnasium 3 times a week, probably for an hour at a time. So if you looked at it from our fees and service chart, that would technically be a $30 an hour rental. So whether council, what we would look at if council wanted to go to that $10 rate for any is simply direction today, because we would then look at changing, and we are looking at right now, we are going through the fees and service charges by law right now. So we would just need a direction that you were interested in changing that rate technically from 20 or 30 an hour, or quite possibly if she wanted both at $50 an hour, she's looking to pay $10 for whatever she uses. So if that's a $50 rental, exclusively using the gym and the lounge, she would still like that for $10. So that's the discussion, that's the direction that council has to make a decision on. Ultimately, right now, she would like the full gym. And so that technically by our fees and service bylaw is a $30 per hour plus HSU rent. So
If I could jump in, I support lowering the rate. I feel like we haven't been providing recreational opportunities for residents. And I don't think that $10 here, $20 here is going to really make much of a difference. So I certainly support the use of those facilities and get people out. Yeah, that's how I feel about it.
What about even 15, having a half rate because she's using it during work hours?
yeah, so initially, but I'll just fill you in a little more because I was speaking with her today. Initially, yesterday or on the weekend, she had emailed me about previous of weekday, but then last night or this morning, and I can't remember when the email came through when I responded, but it was more to be an evening thing. It was back to an evening thing. So,
During the weekdays?
Yeah, during the weekdays and I believe 2 weekdays and Saturday mornings. So,
I don't know, because well, it's only an hour, I guess. On a Saturday. Just seems.
and I mean, I think on a non-COVID year, that the little gym, the lounge room would be sufficient for her. So I agree with what Sarah's saying to an extent, for sure. I mean, you are providing, but it would mean us changing this. Now, like I said, direction, we could allow her with the direction of council we could make that change and then change it with our complete bylaw change. So we could implement this as early as tomorrow if that was the direction of council. Like I said, I don't know how you feel totally as well about asking if you did rent the room for $10 and somebody wanted to use the gym. That becomes a bit of an issue too, because if the kids want to play, say, basketball and now they can't, or so that becomes a bit of an issue as well. And I understand it has been an issue in the past. So I think there's some different circumstances as we maneuver ourselves through COVID. I think the gym is her need now, basically based on social distancing.
If I may, isn't this the age of cooperation? So if somebody wants to rent that room, the lounge, and it's only going to be an hour and a half, can people not wait an hour and a half to leave that gym vacant?
I would assume some people would. Again, it's the direction of council. If council has to make that decision based on the price that's requested by the citizen, as well as the decision to A, make it an exclusive rental when she has that room, or B, not. That whether somebody can wait or not, that's a personal decision, but council can make that easy by saying, yes, you can use the gym when she's in there, or no, you can't. Again, they're decisions of council. The direction comes from council on.
I would say go low with the lounge, put a sign up or whatever on the gym area that it's not going to be used while yoga or whatever is going on. And if anybody's in the gym, are they going to be paying $30 an hour to use the gym? Or is this in case some wandering youngsters come and decide they want to play a little bit of basketball?
Well, if they rented the gym at that time, they would, but as a nonprofit volunteer, your fees and services bylaw says that you don't charge them. So that would be something that was set by council as well. So if you had youth in the community that wanted to go play basketball for the evening, we don't charge them right now. That's what our bylaw says.
I think really our direction should be, if we want the $10 per hour, I don't believe it's acceptable for the exclusive rates that if you have a session, you could have 2 back-to-back sessions. So for 3 hours, no one can have access to the gymnasium because you don't want, to be hearing kids playing basketball or pick up, hockey or anything like that, right? We don't have many facilities in town that offer any. Right, so if kids can play up there or seniors want to go walk, I don't think that really we should be denying that. So best option would be just to rent the gym all the time and not the small side room, right? But again, that's their option. But I'm in favor for the season for the $10 an hour, but not just to block off, because then it's going to be I don't want anybody walking up the stairs looking at us through the windows. Like it does progress that way. Unfortunately, people do complain of that. So I remember working at the rec center before, we had to put up paper on the windows. So,
But you would like to think that they could work together, right? In a space so that everyone can enjoy it.
for sure. So if
Yeah.
council and the township is accommodating dropping the rate,
Yes,
then,
we should
Um,
accommodate the kids that would like to also use the gym.
for sure.
Yeah.
And now that I mean, it's not just during the day if your lessons are all at night. You know, people might be going bowling and then their kids are gonna play at the rec center. We all did that, right? Your kids go run around.
And her schedules may change as well, right? Sometimes, I mean, right now she's looking at evenings, but she has discussed weekdays as well and mornings, so hers could change as well. But
For sure, somebody could be going out to dinner and your kids want to go burn some energy off, they run upstairs, right? They burn a ball, so.
Yeah.
It really would actually be a little inconvenient for a lot of people. But I'm in favor of the $10.
What about even like the seniors room? Is that even possible? Are those tables ever moved or is that not? big
well,
enough?
when we did discuss that, her preference was to use this facility, but so that's what I was going with was her request for this. I did offer her that room, and it was still her preference to be here. So I guess the clear direction I need then is, because I need to speak with her in the morning. So a full gym, a gym lounge and or a gym. So she's never going to rent the gymnasium and the lounge, right? So we've, I wouldn't think, right?
But if she's in the gym, she doesn't want anybody in the lounge to distract them, right? That's what I'm hearing. Anybody.
So we were looking at a full gym. If she wanted to rent the full gym for the 1 hour, we would be going from $30 to $10. Am I correct in that? And if she was just using the golden room, which I assume she won't at this point, if the gym is the same price, but we'd have to put that down to $10 as well, right? The 20. And then the gymnasium and the lounge at 50, we're not changing because we're not, am I on the right for direction? So we're going to go the full gym from 30 to 10 and the gym lounge from 20 to 10. And if anybody wants to use either facility at the other time, they're more than welcome to do that. They would hopefully work that out between each of them. Like, we're not exclusively saying nobody can use that facility, right? Is that the direction?
Yeah, for sure.
So,
Okay.
Yes.
we'll give it a go.
Well, just because it's time sensitive with her and I want to get back to her first thing in the morning so she can advertise that. So I will let her know council has made the decision to meet her $10 request for either the gym or the lounge. And but if she's using the lounge and somebody's using the gym, then they have to coexist and or vice versa, right? Okay.
And we can like reassess this in 6 months or something. We can't leave it at $10.
Well, the rec center will be closed for the spring, but that's when we usually revisit the rate schedule. Yeah.
But yeah, we will update the bylaw. We will update that, and then we can visit that again at any given time, but we will have to update that. So those are the two that I will update, and we'll have a little note in there on the use of the gym that we can make that work.
I'm a little bit worried that it seems to be that she's not exactly 100% sure what she wants. And I think that could really be a little bit hard for you.
I'm giving you exactly what she asked in the last request. So in saying that it might change, but I don't think that the times might change. I think she was more concerned at the amount of the rental.
It's just that sometimes it might be during the daytime, sometimes it might be in the evening.
Right.
She mentions that Michelle Legacy and Andrea Zapsik, it just seems to be sort of like in motion, and I'd like to see something firm. And you've come up with something pretty good right now by saying $10, fine, that's good. At least that decision's made, but maybe she needs to provide a little bit more clarity as to and certainty.
Well, what we've decided is that it's $10 an hour for anybody who wants to rent those facilities, and everybody's gonna have to coexist if the rooms are side by side, right? Which is the gym and the lounge. So that's something the renter is going to have to deal with. So
And I don't think you're like, it's not like you're talking a lot of money, and if you're not renting it for 20 and you are renting it for 10, you're still ahead in the long run, right? So, and you're providing that type of, benefit to your citizens, and you're also not segregating anyone else if it's the youth or somebody that wants to use it. And hopefully they can coexist. So, I mean, I think if I present that to her, that's what I will present tomorrow, and hopefully she can get going.
Okay, thank you. 6.3 is information and acceptance. It relates to the rate study and financial plan provided by Aqua. Do members of council have questions of administration? It is a lot of information. As you know, we needed to provide this to the government. It is law for us to maintain our water license and to renew it. We contracted Aqua out a long time ago to do this for us, and they provided us with the study. If there's no questions, do I have a mover and seconder for a motion to accept the rate study and financial plan from Ontario Clean Water Agency, and that the financial plan be submitted to the MECP for the township's drinking water license renewal? Councillor Tedesco, Councillor Muir.
So this we brought forward for finance for budgeting purposes as well too. But we can use this document now because there was tons of good information in there.
For sure, it's one of those documents that we require for our safe drinking water.
Yeah.
It's also one of those documents that you wouldn't necessarily use this document for your budgeting purposes because those rates are set by council. This is a guide that it's a 7-year or a 6-year guide that guides you in the direction to be fully sustainable and to be able to invest in your water and wastewater projects. So I think the better guiding document, Councillor Muir, would be when we discuss rates as a council and council sets those rates, because not necessarily do you or would you possibly follow that document? It's your guideline, right? Because if you look closely at it, it talks about rates and those kind of things. So, but the general nuts and bolts of it, sure, you'd use it, but then you'd use your own rates that council sets at that point.
It's a good guideline.
And the rate study was a study requested by this council, right? So it's a great document to have. It's one that you need as well when you're applying for funding, and most of the funding and the application processes will always require studies like this to even move you to the next level along that way. So definitely it's one that you can use.
I just wanted to say on page 2, it talks about that the O&M costs will increase from 75,000 to 170,000. Do we know how we're going to deal with that? It says over the next year.
Yeah, so what they're discussing there, and Aqua will be at our next council meeting as a delegation to discuss some of these issues. So I met with Aqua, I believe it was Thursday, and actually I meet with them again tomorrow in the city. So it's a really good question, and a lot of that, well, all of that is tied into the commissioning of our new wastewater facility, because what you have with the new wastewater facility is obviously a much more complicated process to operate as a municipality. So necessarily thinking that you're going to have a more streamlined and more economical process is is probably not going to be the case in this. So Aqua will be here. They will discuss that. Again, these are studies that council can make those decisions on, but I think it's best at this point, because I'm meeting them again tomorrow to discuss a lot of this, to wait to have that final discussion until they're here next meeting. But they have committed to being a delegation at our next meeting.
Okay, so it was moved by Councillor Tedesco, seconded by Councillor Muir. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Can we get just that plan emailed to us, not in the minute session, but just the plan itself? Just for files? Just
Like the rate study and the financial.
Yeah, because when we get the minutes, it's all together. I'm just wondering if I can just have the
Yeah, we
actual,
could-
yeah, possible. Thanks.
It's there, but you just want it separate, eh?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That's okay.
Okay, item 6.4 is for recommendation. It relates to the reopening of the recreation center for the 2021-22 season. Do members of council have any questions of administration? Councillor Tedesco.
Opening the recreation center and the ice arena installed, should they not be two separate items?
They are two
Okay.
separate items. Yeah.
Because I think obviously if we're going to be opening up the rec center, if we approve opening the rec center, that's fine as far as Kathy and the yoga and all that. But if we say no, then that puts a no to the yoga thing. So, I just wanted to make sure that we have two separate items there.
Yeah, they are two separate items. That's kind of what we're looking at is the direction. And that's partially by history. The rec center itself usually opens mid-September. So that's the recommendation we're making. We're making the recommendation for Monday, September 13th, because we do have requests for rental for that whole week from Elections Canada. So Elections Canada will be in the building that week, whether they've reserved that slot. So they're in there for a full week. So there is a good revenue for the municipality based out of that rental for the week. They'll use the building pretty well for 4 pre-poll dates as well as election day. So that's why we chose that Monday, which is pretty well. I mean, it is mid-September on that Monday start anyway. So that's our recommendation for the rec center. The arena ice, as we've discussed that, both Blair and myself, we are at a crunch with the company that will need to come in, not a crunch, but we need to make these decisions if we are going to have ice now, because Simcoe will have to come in and service our equipment and that in order to install the ice. So what we talked about was basically, if that's where council wanted to go, kind of like a November 1st start, and really that March 1st should technically say February 28th, if that's what it is. The reason for that as well, I mean, you can, and that's why we said those numbers are tentative as well, as we would have to monitor this whole situation on a potential wave 4 of COVID as well, right? But these are projected starts that we have. The reason why we would like to end it right at the end of a month is for hydro purposes and meter reading purposes, because as you extend that, if you can close that right there, there is a significant savings to the municipality where they follow the time of energy readings on those major industrial buildings. So you do save quite a bit of money by stopping that plant at the end of February, as opposed to stretching it to March 15th. Because if you stretch it to March 15th, you're pretty well committed on that time of read for that extra time. It also gives a 4-month season for your arena, and we do realize that we do have limited rentals, limited use, but it is the hub of your community. And if we, if council chooses to do that, I have had meetings already with our recreation secretary at the arena. There is some talk of, there is talk of further recreation, further use for the arena, maybe promoting that into even into the city, if that was something that council was interested in. I mean, it's a very quick drive up the way, even if you're promoting that to city teams to play a 3-game kind of little Saturday where they use the arena, they use the restaurant, they use your facilities in town. I mean, it is one of those things. It's expensive to run an arena, but you have to weigh the options of providing that service to your citizens, and that's where it becomes, the tough decisions of council. Our recommendation this year, pending COVID, pending anything that could happen, that we would obviously put a stop to all of our plans right away, would be to recommend having ice installed for that period of 4 months.
Councilor Mayor.
So I guess the last couple of years I've been requesting usage fees from the ice because we don't have any Red Rock minor hockey teams. So even before COVID, the ice wasn't being used, and the cost to run it with the leaking ceiling, the condensation, mechanical issues, heating it in the stands. And then last year, even before COVID, we were told that the furnaces were red tagged. So there's no heat on the other end. So there was 2 dressing rooms that are down. So the cost to do all these repairs, and then with the grant announcement, fact that we still won't have any minor hockey. We do have the outdoor rink that's been provided. That's getting use, that we're getting a light installed in. We do have a donation for that. So I don't know how much sense it makes to myself for the ice this year with a possible 4th wave and no hockey teams. And historically, the Thunder Bay teams don't travel down the highway. Not from what I've seen anyway.
Do you have a rough estimate as to the cost of maintaining that arena over a year, including the electricity and the Simcoe and perhaps even the furnace repairs and all those sort of things? Do you have a rough estimate as to what it would cost for that 4-month period or 5-month period?
To run it for the 4 months? Like to run the ice for the 4 months? Well, like we said, they're definitely, I don't have the number at the top of my head right now, but it's definitely, they are significant costs. I mean, the decision council has to make, and those are the discussions you have to have, right? I mean, there is significant cost. That's why we put in a later start. It's a lot easier to run an ice plant, where you start it late October for an early November start. That's a cost saving there. It's a lot easier to close it in February as well as to run it through March. So it's very similar to the discussion on rentals. I mean, arenas are a major cost to the taxpayers. There's no question about it. Councillor Muir is correct on a lot of the issues. Some of the issues, those haven't been corrected. They are part of a funding plan. They will be corrected, but they won't be corrected at this point, right? I mean, so yeah, it's a decision of council we made based on the fact that I believe, if I'm not mistaken, in that budget line, we budgeted, and I'd have to get you those exact numbers where we budgeted for being down now and then having an arena season. So it is reflected in that amount. And if I'm not, I don't want to throw a number there, but it is reflected in the fact that we have to give that, we have to budget for that, knowing that it is something that normally happens. And then it's a decision of council if you don't want to put that ice in. significantly, knowing that it is a cost to the tax base. There's no doubt about that.
Do you have a ballpark figure? Because the previous administrator had thrown around numbers of 35,000 for the ice, just generating the ice for that period of time.
To install the ice?
Yeah.
I can get you that number. I don't have it off the top of my head right.
Do you know what it would cost for the outdoor rink?
Well, significantly less.
Well, I believe it was just the cost for the replacement of the furnaces was over 29. That wasn't even the cost of, so that was the two dressing rooms. Specifically, there was a tournament there and there's people that couldn't get dressed in there. So, I mean, and is that Zamboni even work still? You know what I mean? There's a huge cost if it doesn't start up, right? I don't know. I've just, like, I've got two small children, and they spend a lot of time at that outdoor rink. And I would love, and that's why the subdivision is so huge, because we don't have enough people for teams. Like, we don't have enough kids for teams right now. We need to build that up. Hopefully we can get going and get there again. But right now, to put the ice in, for it to be used 2 times a week. Yeah, like I said, historically, those T-Bay teams, they'd come down and play against our local Red Rock teams that we had. And they folded up. And we do have the outdoor rink. We do have that outdoor rink that is COVID safe too, right? So even if you're in the 4th wave, we still have that outdoor rink that can be used. I mean, the volunteer base is there and the cost wasn't that high.
Councillor Park.
So Mark, do we have to make the decision tonight about the ice or can we put that off?
Well, we can get you more solid information. I think where Councillor Tedesco's kind of says is what does it cost to install that ice, right? So those numbers, again, will reflect, they can be reflected in a lot of ways with just simply the weather outside, right? I believe we can get you those solid numbers. I mean, as best as we can project, right? The arena, we didn't operate last year, but yeah, we could certainly.
Okay, so I think direction from council is to provide us with some updates on where we think, the status of the Zamboni, the ice plant. It's dressing room 1 and 2, probably not going to get used anyway. So I'm not too worried about furnace costs in that. I mean, that's supposed to be taken care of eventually with the funding. So I think maybe, obviously, because we would have to start planning soon.
Well,
so
yeah,
maybe by
and
next
any-
council, if that's enough time for you to have that information.
In any discussions I have had with the director of operations, I mean, he doesn't, I mean, the Zamboni would get the job. Like, it's not like he's saying no, the Zamboni, it is part of a replacement plan as well as the dressing rooms, those kind of things are. But I know when we did the budget process, this was kind of the discussion we had, like, let's include that. And that's why we made this recommendation. Let's include opening the arena as our discussions that we would have. So that's kind of why we made the recommendation basically condensed as well. Like I said, we know they are significant costs to the arena. We were trying to minimize them as much as we could by shrinking a season, right?
Okay, so good news, the Rex will be fully open September 13th, and then we're gonna work towards a decision on the arena ice. Okay, no bylaws at this meeting. There is no new business to review at this meeting. Unfinished business. 9.1, recommendation to terminate the contract between the Township of Red Rock and Signature Financial Services. Do council have any questions of administration?
I thought we were going to be discussing that a bit further. Wasn't there some information to come back from that company, that Signature Financial? What was the result of that?
Well, I did speak with her and she was quite clear that she was she had accepted my decision and was
under the impression that
she would, that was the decision made by the CAO, and that's the decision that was made by the CAO. I gave her direction that my direction from council was that the council would like to speak with her. And at that point, I reached out to council to organize that and never did get a committee organized. It was in the hands of council at that point, and so she was definitely under the impression that and comfortable with the decision made by the CAO, and that was the way she wanted to deal with it. And like I said, I let her know that.
So it was an open-ended contract, right? And unfortunately, obligations weren't met. So we ended the contract with Signature Financial, and that's basically what the CAO's job is. And that's on his, advice, terminated that contract.
there was some questions about the whole issue, how it all happened and all that sort. That's
Yeah,
why we had-
I understand that, Councillor
Excuse me, I was
Tedesco.
about to finish. That's why we had asked for an opportunity to find out more. And I didn't realize that it had been left up to council to come up with a decision, which is the CAO's prerogative.
Okay, just to make clear, it's not council who hires and fires. It is the job of the CAO. It was on his recommendation that obligations were not met by the financial person who is in charge of all of the money for Red Rock, that they were unable to commit to our township. So the CAO, doing his job, terminated that contract, which was open-ended, did not cost the township any money to do that. It was received by Signature Financial and understood. Council, unfortunately, overstepped, asking to hire somebody back. That was not meeting our obligation. So I'm not sure if you don't recall, but you were one of the members that wanted this. So again, we have to pass this motion to terminate the contract. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for a motion to terminate the contract between the Corporation of the Township of Red Rock and Signature Financial, effective August 4th, 2021? Councillor Perk and Councillor McDonald. All in favor? Okay. Against is Muir and Tedesco.
Mayor, I believe the mayor does not vote on these matters.
Okay, again, the mayor, seeing that it's 2 and 2.
Oh, you're correct, I'm sorry.
Thank you.
the mayor is a member of council, so the mayor does vote on. No,
The mayor is also entitled to vote.
Show a little respect.
Thank you. Motion is carried. Okay, 9.2, administration is looking for direction from council relating to the potential sale of municipal property. Does council have any questions of administration? So if you recall last meeting, somebody was looking to purchase 2 lots on the CPR road, which the other person owns another parcel. And an update from the CAO.
Yeah, so as directed by council, I reached back out to the individual to have a further discussion. He's very interested in purchasing the property. He made an offer to me of $12,000. I told him that 15 was kind of the number, and I was using it based on impact values to that property. he made a couple of requests based on the actual, some of the restrictions with the property. It does. The main power line goes right through a lot of the properties there. So they're very, they are somewhat limited. There is the two pieces that you can see on the map. So you've got the big piece and this little skinny piece. The person who wanting to purchase it owns this little square piece at the front. So all three residential properties. What I'm looking for from council is direction to go back to the individual and accept and or see if that he does make a formal offer at the 13.5 and sell the properties. That would be the direction I'm looking for from council.
I don't see any problems. Anyone else?
Well, the final number is 13,500. I will contact him in the morning.
Okay, 9.3 is recommendation to move to quarterly billing. Does council have any questions of administration? So it has been advertised. A lot of people are quite receptive of it. People can still go to the municipal office and pay their bill monthly if they wish. You can get it averaged out. Office staff will do that for you. But again, it's a cost savings to the town.
Has anything been put out like in the mailboxes just for like maybe elderly that don't have?
Yeah, so they're gonna go out with this, with the mail outs. So that's the target for that. We've even discussed the code red system that we do have and looking at activating that for notices. And you can use that system for simple notices, like something like that, or a lot of municipalities are even using it now to remind the citizens of simple things like garbage day and things like that. So yeah, we are looking at that. There will be, because what you're going to see now is this next bill, right? So it's going to start October 1st, but it's always a month behind, right? So we will have those mail outs as well.
It's a good idea. It's going to save money, and there'll probably be a few glitches as people learn to catch on, but eventually it's going to be really good.
Well, it definitely will save time and money. A lot of time. There's a lot of time that goes into stuffing and doing, like we would send out on average 400 bills or 400 mail outs. So just do the math on the stamps alone and the time and I mean, if you want to get into ink and anything else, we're very open and receptive to filling or to figuring and we've said that, right? If anyone wants to make monthly payments, we'll go as far as to figure out what your average is for that year, right? So we certainly don't want to inconvenience anyone, and we do realize that sometimes change is hard to accept, but it is the norm. It is the norm for municipalities to bill quarterly. It is a cost savings. I mean, every little bit of cost savings, every little bit that you can get helps. It really does, especially in a small municipality. So.
Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to change from monthly utility billing to quarterly billing effective October 1st, 2021? Councillor McDonald and Councillor Tedesco. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay. 9.4, recommendation to move the closed session portion of council meetings to 6:30 p.m. on a trial run basis effective September 20th, 2021. Does council have any questions of administration? As you know, really, we try not to go in camera, right? It's really only legal reasons or getting advice. So we do try not to go in cameras as much as possible. So a half hour might not seem long, but sometimes you just need a quick chat and it would be done beforehand, right? So I think it would be good to try it on a trial basis and see how that goes. Okay, is there a mover and seconder for motion to move the closed session portion of council meetings to 6:30 on a trial run basis effective September 2021? Councilor Perk, Councilor Muir.
We didn't want to start it tonight because we had Silvio from Bruno's coming in and we were meeting him prior, so I didn't feel comfortable. I mean, we had a second delegation too, but you knew it was 7. We were meeting Silvio private to look at the site at 6:15, 6:30. So I didn't want to then tell him, okay, we're going in close and you got to wait till 7 kind of thing. So I thought, well, we'll do that. So that's why we put it off a week, or sorry, 2 weeks for the next meeting.
Okay, all in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, next on the agenda is closed session portion of the meeting. May I have a mover and seconder to go into closed session under the authorities as printed in the agenda? Councilor Muir, Councilor Park. Time being 8:25. We will now go into closed session. Okay, item 2021-1250, bylaw to confirm proceedings of council. Do members of council have questions of administration? None? Okay, can I have a mover and seconder to pass the motion? Park. McDonald. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Time being 8:34, there's no further business to discuss. The meeting is adjourned. Thank you.